kicked off so soon. I think he kicked himself because I think we had a good discussion going there.
Yeah, well, that's the way it always goes with Remy. He's still here. Yeah, he's just not gonna. He's made the point he's made. I mean, it's he doesn't have to defend life. Okay, life defends itself. The majority has spoken, and I don't even know. Like I said, I'm always going to be guilty of imposing my psychology on this thing being studied. I'm always going to be vulnerable to that accusation because it is really difficult. It's not a simple fucking thing to do, to step outside of your own personal biases, to say, okay, I'm going to ignore the fact that I like chocolate cake, and I'm going to analyze a piece of shit and a piece of chocolate cake, and I'm going to try to figure out the difference between the two realistically, without my desire, without my sense of smell. Well, whatever. There I go again, doing what?
There you go again, just substituting rhetoric for argument. It's the piece of cake, it's the shit, it's the heroin addiction. I mean, you're not making any fucking argument, man. What you're doing is just piling up a bunch of rhetoric on one side of the equation and a bunch of rhetoric of the opposite kind on the other side, and saying, there it is. Done.
Well, I'm sorry. It's not just rhetoric. If I contend that a brain tumor, the what you experience when you have a brain tumor, or you have, let's say, an infection, a horrible infection, a blood infection, and you're in horrible physical discomfort and distress, and if I say that has a substance, and I contend that that substance has more meaning, more weight, mass, as a substance, as a feeling, than somebody who, you know, is whacking off, or somebody who's, you know, getting off because they, you know, were in a contest with their friend from high school, and, you know, he got the girl and he feels all proud of himself and he's having a little ego trip. That, yeah, you can't use that the little trivial accomplishment. Again, I can't finish the sentences, Remy. Is that how we play the game? That's not lag doing that. I'm right in the middle of my fucking goddamn sentence, so I don't think it's fucking lag.
No, I guess it wasn't lag. Excuse me, this time. But you're just doing the same goddamn thing. You're just piling up a bunch of rhetoric on one side of the equation, and you're letting the rhetoric, or you're trying to let the rhetoric do the heavy lifting of the argument for you.
Well, again, I don't understand how the argument can be put in any other terms, Remy. What other way do I describe suffering than to describe something that is suffering? How else do I describe pleasure than to describe something that is having pleasure? I mean, I have to describe the fucking things. I don't have any other mechanism, Remy. I can't draw you a fucking literal picture of it.
No, do that, man. You're going to describe the pleasure we take in life, describe the pain that we feel. I could deal with that. I mean, you know, there are a bunch of descriptions of hard suffering, but when you come around to describing the pleasure we take in life, it's always baseball shit, masturbation, fucking, you know, I mean, the rhetoric devalues.
Which one do you want me to get to? You want me to talk about the Sistine Chapel? I'll talk about the Sistine Chapel. I'll talk about the David. All right, I can rip David a new asshole. Okay, I mean, this whole aesthetics thing. You know, the fact that we derive pleasure from that, and what part of our psychology creates that, and why are these gladiator-style images more beautiful to us? Why do we think this woman is attractive
what you said
and
just now
beautiful and magnificent, and yet this other woman is not? Okay, why? Because one has, what, a fatter ass? So yeah, you can turn anything of all our desires into shit, Remy, and it's not my fault you can do that. It's the fault of the mechanism, and that's my fucking argument. The point is that everything we desire is contrived. All right, it's contrived, Remy. It is made of absolute nothing. Its core source is a DNA molecule obliging you to have an incentive to wiggle through the shit. You wouldn't wiggle through this shit unless you were
Okay, fine.
chasing something. So
Let
it
me-
has
let me
to
speak
make
for a
you
minute.
think there's something worth
Well,
chasing.
well then, Gary,
and
by
there's
that
not
token-
one single thing on this planet you can point to, okay, that is a true, real value, except
All right, fine,
eliminating
Gary.
suffering.
But by that,
There's nothing
by that
else
token-
on this planet you can point to
all the
that has any real value.
All right, Gary, I'll tell you what. Here's the goddamn annoying thing about your room. You get to speak for 15 minutes, and then when I try to interject, I'm stepping over you. But nevertheless, here's the thing, man. Everything you say about the pleasures and satisfactions we take in life, you could say about the suffering too. I mean, what is that but the DNA just acting up?
Again, you're not going to get it. So you're going to sit there. What I'm saying is, I'm not saying the mechanism of pain and pleasure. I'm not saying those things don't exist. I'm not saying they're not real. What I'm saying is that the suffering has a material substance. It is it's not a contrivance.
But the pleasure
Suffering is
doesn't.
real.
But the pleasure doesn't.
Huh? Well, yeah. I'm sorry. That's just the way it works out.
What do you
That's
mean
right.
by it has a material
Suffering and
substance?
pleasure, suffering and pleasure are different things, okay? They're not the same thing, all right? One is intended to motivate. One of them
They are
happens
exactly
as
the
a
same thing.
consequence of structure. No, they're not the same thing, Remy. All right? There's no evolutionary advantage to having pain when you have a brain tumor.
So you're saying suffering?
Absolutely none. Okay, we suffer.
So you're saying suffering
most of the suffering we experience has no evolutionary value, Remy. All right, it doesn't stop us from doing something. It doesn't prevent us from doing something. It doesn't do any of that stuff. That's all the minor stubbed toe kind of miseries. The hard suffering that animals do is usually 99% of the time completely useless to them. It will do them no good. They will gain no benefit from it at all. They will just die with it.
Sub-DNA, now's the time to kick-proof yourself in the next life as well.
Testing, 1, 2, 3. Yeah, I was very much enjoying that debate between Do Not God and Rami. Wow, kind of caught me off guard there. Yeah, I got to go back. I can't jump into the discussion where you guys have been carrying it on. I got to jump in from a much earlier point. Does the universe have any purpose whatsoever? Does it have any meaning whatsoever? Does it have necessity whatsoever? By the way, I have no idea whether anybody can hear me or not. Could somebody just say?
I hear you.
Yes.
Yeah, I can hear you. Well, anyway, those are all pointless words.
No, they're not.
Okay,
They're not
you
pointless,
have to
Gary.
premise
They're
it
not
with something.
pointless.
Yes, they are. I'm sorry. The word necessity is a
Jesus
pointless word unless you're talking about what the hell it's serving.
That-
What
I was getting
you already
to
have
that.
to define the purpose before you can use that word. Well, why don't you get to it already then?
Gary, you won't let people even take your own side. Yes, the universe is essentially unnecessary. There is no purpose for its existence. It is essentially unnecessary and purposefulness. There, happy. But the meaning. Now, I know you've talked about this in many of your videos. You've pointed the camera out onto the path, and you've said, what is the meaning of this? And I wouldn't give 10 cents for this. And ironically, or I don't know, unexpected, that meaning arises from suffering and pain. That's where the suffering and meaning arises from. That, well, I mean, if
Yeah, well,
if you had to do
that's
it all
you
over
could
again.
take that as a direct quote from over 100 of my videos. Okay, yeah. I mean, I've always said those exact words. Okay, all meaning is derived from the negatives that are created. There is no innate positive. The only positive is eliminating negatives. The negative of deprivation. That's what the nature of desire is. Desire is not necessarily a completely positive feeling or sensation, okay, especially when it goes unsatisfied with any kind of duration or in any kind of extreme. Then that deprivation becomes quite uncomfortable. All right, but it's always a negative state in a sense. It's creating a negative state in you where some piece of you is basically, I've metaphored it as what nature is doing is it is taking a piece of you and removing it from you, separating you from it, and now creating a force that's going to make like magnetism, where you're going to chase your peace. All right, you're born in deprivation. You're born wanting, needing. Okay, and you never stop until you are dead.
Okay, I don't. Halfway through your reply, cut out. So sorry. I really regret this, but you're going to have to repeat it. I got the last half. And
I agree with I don't think I need to repeat it. It's in enough of my videos. It's a basic premise of my fucking goddamn argument. It's the fact that the negatives are innate, okay, and the only positive is to remove the negatives, okay? And so all we have to do is establish what the negatives are, and I just did that. All right? The negatives are in this wasted suffering that is part of our structure, okay? We feel more pain than is necessary to any protection or necessary to any creation of a desire. So there's a huge waste of suffering that's endured, and the motivating element of this thing is just that. It's a contrivance of the fucking DNA, of the evolution. It is completely contrived. There is no cheese. The cheese is in our fucking head. It's made out of our desire for cheese. Women's pussies are not beautiful. They're beautiful because we've been built to want, to desire, to think they're beautiful. I mean, we're not physically more beautiful than a fucking tree sloth. All right? The reason why we think we are is merely a perception. It's an illusion of beauty. It is not real beauty that we see in the world. It's an illusion created in our goddamn brain to make us hungry for this shit.
Well, Gary, first of all, women's pussies are beautiful. And second, as far as I'm concerned, that argument you're making that pleasure is just the negation of deprivation, I think I refuted that over a year ago in a video, and you never, ever answered back.
Well, big talk from a one-eyed fat man, as somebody once said in a movie. What the fuck are you talking about? You refuted something, and I didn't. Come on, bullshit on that crap. What, I gotta go look through your 4 videos to find your refutation? Well, let's hear it. Let's hear the argument.
Well, it shouldn't be that hard then if there are only 4. All right, briefly. The deprivation, we experience the deprivation in a different way than we experience the pleasure. The deprivation, we may not even be aware of it. The pleasure, we're most aware of it. So,
But that's not how it works, Remy. I mean, if you think about most of your pleasures...
I'll tell you the example this came up. This was like, many months ago, a year and some months ago, and I was saying, okay, I get pleasure from listening to music, and I asked you a question, and the question was, when I hear a song that, I love and it gives me a high, am I just canceling out some kind of